this show, we talk about various topics related to domestic abuse. And today on our show, we are Skyping with the lovely Tanya Brown. And Tanya, thank you so much for being on our show today. You are such an inspiration.
You're welcome.
To me. Tanya, here's a flyer of Tanya appearing for Jewish Family and Children's Service. Very moving and inspirational program. Here we go. Can you see it? and Tanya spoke about domestic abuse and her book, Peace Amid the Chaos. Tanya is the sister of Nicole Brown Simpson, who, along with Ron Goldman, were tragic victims of violence. Tanya opens up about her relationship with OJ, how her sister's tragedy affected her, depression, and not only her survival, but her advocacy, and how she inspires people every day. And I know Tanya also has a new book that we'll be speaking about also. So I'm very excited to hear about all that you've been doing. And I just want to welcome you.
Thank you. I'm super excited. This is just amazing how we can talk to each other from on opposite polar ends of our country. Pretty cool, Hillary.
You're in sunny California.
Yeah. We're probably about 80 We're probably about 80 degrees right now. We don't get winters out here.
Yeah, well, we've had a never-ending winter here. So I know that you had spoken about your book, Peace Amid the Chaos. You can still get that on Amazon, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And there's numerous books called Finding Peace Amid the Chaos. Just make sure that you type my name or the subtitle, My Escape from Depression and Suicide. Or you can get it on my website, and I'll go ahead and sign a copy and send it out to you.
Oh, I didn't know you would sign a copy. That's so nice. I was going to ask you to tell our viewers how to be able to get in contact with you.
Absolutely. Through my email or website at www.tanyabrown.net. Make sure it's a net, N-E-T.
So
yeah, I'll go ahead and sign it and do a huge hugs because everybody needs a hug in their life. And I'll give you, I'd love to do that for your listeners and your viewers.
Great. Now, when you spoke at the JCC last year, I'm not sure if you knew, but you really touched so many people. We had a lot of people step up and want to volunteer for Project Sarah, which is the domestic abuse program.
Good.
And we also, not only did we have a victim, as you know, stand up and speak that night, but we had several people reach out to us, either that were friends of victims and needed guidance, or people that were victims. I don't want to go into too many details for confidentiality, but you really inspired a lot of people to come forward and know that they're not alone and that it can happen to anybody.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I appreciate that. You know, doing the work that I do, I present, and I'm only there for about 45 minutes, unless you do a meet and greet like you did before for your special guests.
Right.
And so you never know the impact, or I never know the impact that I have until people like you just shared that with me. So I get tears in my eyes just knowing that, just being vulnerable enough and candid enough and authentic to just spread the word. And I'm so happy to hear that people came forward and got some good information and support. Know that they're not alone.
Right. That's exactly it. I mean, when you never know what's going to move somebody. It could be a certain story that you give. It could be the statistics that were rolling on the board behind you about how many victims we have in our own hometown. Most people were overwhelmed by your story about how in your sister's diary you read that OJ abused the pets. And it's interesting that people seem to not be as surprised when human beings are abused, but then when pets are abused, there was like an audible gasp in the audience.
Yeah. We need to start talking about violence on any level, whether it's human against human, humans against poor defenseless little animals. But OJ threw out Nicole's cat on the freeway on her birthday.
Yeah.
And Nicole had the perfect opportunity to share that with all of us. I think she shared it with my sister, but I'm not too sure, our other sister, because otherwise how would she have known? I didn't know up until I think last year when I spoke to you. But abusive people, male or female, but predominantly it's the male, will abuse anything that means anything to the victim. So that includes maybe an heirloom. It includes your kids. It includes your animals. It includes damaging anything that is near and dear to your heart. And guess what, Hillary? The person is going to be next. Yeah. So if abusive people, if you're in a situation right now and these things are happening to you, don't dismiss it as, oh, you know what? It was just my car. It was just my mom's base. Or, okay, he slapped my kid. He didn't punch my kid. You're going to be next. And these are little beginnings, actually big beginning signs of where things can end, and where it will end and where it can end is in a potential murder. And Hillary, I get very clear with people, because if I don't scare people a little bit, change can't happen. I want people to really go to themselves, say to themselves, oh my gosh, I'm in this situation. I got to reach out and get help. And you're not alone, but we need to start addressing.
I was just addressing a group early this morning, and I said to the group, 1 in 4 women will experience abuse in their lifetime. So look around at this group. With men and women, 1 in 7 men will experience abuse. Said more than likely there are a couple victims in this room, and you need to be mindful of your judgment and of the things that you say, because you don't know if someone is sitting next to you is a victim or their relative was a victim. And one of the participants came forward and said in front of the group that her sister had just gone through something very abusive, and she was upset that I was telling them all these great resources and support and legal avenues, and they didn't know any of it. And so it's sad in that when you isolate yourself or you don't come forward and know the support systems, you're unaware of what's out there for you. But what was good was that the group realized that if you do come forward, look at all these these options that I gave you. So maybe if you have a friend or a relative, you can, let them know that these options are there for them.
Yeah, because they don't know where to turn. Victims of domestic violence, they feel so alone and so isolated. And once you isolate, for me, I think that's like the scariest thing, because with domestic violence, it's you want to be independent, and then with isolating, you become dependent, and your spirit and your confidence and your self-assurance is robbed from you. So isolation, I think, is really one of the most dangerous forms of domestic violence, because it's that whole cycle of violence, and isolation is one of them. So I commend you and your team for letting people know of the resources that are there.
Now, remind me, I'm not sure if it's in your book or in your life coaching or in the way you present domestic abuse, but I know you have different types of abusers, and one is the isolator, which I remember very clearly.
Right.
Where is this coming from? Is this from your book, or remind me?
I think it's from my presentation, actually. I kind of integrated I integrated domestic violence along with my personal story. But what ended up happening for 20 years, I've been intermittently speaking on, I was like a perpetual student. So my speaking would come in on a limited basis because school took my priority for the last 20 years. Right. So what ended up happening for a good 15, 16 years, I was like, my gosh, everybody thinks that it's physical assault. And so I have a colleague, Carolyn Inman. She's a professor, retired professor in forensic speech. And I said, Carolyn, something needs to be done. We need to create some sort of other presentation where people will understand that it's just not physical assault. Well, Carolyn, being a new grandmother at that time and just had taken her granddaughter to Disneyland, and I said, we need to come up with some sort of characters or something. So this is kind of how this evolved.
Oh,
and she said, well, how about instead of the seven dwarfs, let's come up with the 7 sneaky characters of abuse. And since I've been doing that over the past 5 or 6 years, people's eyes and perspectives have changed on this cause.
And it's easy to remember.
Yeah, you've got we've created the emotional robber, and the emotional robber is somebody who just puts you down and robs your spirit and takes away any joy that you have. Look, I have a pink top on right now, right? I look happy, I look, and I am happy. I just don't look it. But with somebody who is emotionally abusive, I could be wearing the brightest of all tops, but look completely gray because my spirit has been completely robbed. There's the isolator. There's the financial monger. Because financial abuse is huge, especially with elder abuse. It's a big one this day and age.
Financial abuse is huge in our area in South Jersey. It's really big.
And we need to really address that, because especially with the elders, they're being robbed on every level. I see it with my mom. Thank goodness we're here to support her.
Tanya, I just have to tell you, I found out a horrifying fact the other day that seniors make up, I think it was around 5% or maybe 8% of abuse victims for domestic abuse, and they make up 18% of homicide victims for domestic abuse.
Wow. Yeah. See, I just joined up, and I want people to know this as well. It's called the National Aging in Place Council, and obviously they're a national organization. But they talk about elder abuse, and Carrie Kasem, I've joined forces with her, Casey Kasem's daughter, for Kasem Cares Foundation. And after hearing her story, how her dad was treated and mistreated, actually, and my dad just dying last year, it was heart-wrenching, because nobody, especially in the last chapter of their life, should be treated in an abusive way, no matter what kind of abuse. We should give respect.
Right.
But
actually, at JFCS, we started training home health care aides to be aware of the signs also. Good.
You guys do so much. I mean, it's like anytime I mention something, you're like, we're on it. I love it. And I think a big indicator too is the pseudo parent. The parent that portrays to be the perfect parent out in the public, in the community, but then they're a total monster behind the closed doors. Yeah. So we need to, by sharing that character, a victim may be sitting in the audience just saying to herself, you know what? I'm married to that, or that's my boyfriend, or that's my girlfriend. So it's all about these different types of characters, and I have 7 of them, but our time is limited. But Carolyn and I said, I've always wanted to create like a little airport-sized pocketbook kind of thing that you pick up when you're at the airport. And I said, let's do something on these characters of abuse. So we're creating a little book, less than 90 pages, 95 pages or something like that. And it's going to take these different 7 characters. We're sharing our own personal experiences. And I'm also, for anonymity, I've renamed the clients that I used to work with. But I use their personal stories because I want people to understand and get it, that these are real life experiences from real people who survived domestic violence. So
sadly,
if people want to get more...
Sadly, there's a plethora of stories, and I'm sure you have more than you need, but if you ever need any examples or stories from our agency, and we have clients that are willing to give their stories also that are so moving. But I want to comment one thing on what you said about the abuser that is so charming out in public and like the perfect parent. We have so many victims that have this for their spouse, whether it's their wife or their husband. And 2 things happen. One, they turn the kids against the parent, which makes the parent also so devastated. But secondly, if someone reads this in your book, they might realize, even if they're not a victim, the more people that realize it, then will believe a victim. Because a lot of times a barrier for a victim leaving is that they think, my partner's so charming, no one's going to believe me that they're so vicious behind closed doors. So I think it's so amazing that you're getting this out there, because the public needs to know that you can be charming and, look completely normal and have no anger issues out in public, and then be a pariah behind closed doors.
Exactly. Well, look at OJ, Hillary.
Yeah.
perfect example.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my gosh, he was the smiling guy on NBC who reported football games down on the field. He was the Hertz guy. You know, he was a horrible actor. But this is the charming guy that we all saw. That's why I think this really devastated America on a whole level, because it's like, how can somebody like that kill two people? My personal opinion, other people share a different opinion, but regardless, he did beat my sister dating back to 1978.
Right.
So how can this person that we all saw on television do such a horrible thing? And I've shared some of my some of my sister's diary entries. You know, so it's very important that it's not just the charming guy who's charming behind the closed doors.
Now,
there's two faces.
Who was the gentleman? Who was his best friend that drove the white Bronco?
That's A.C. Cowlings.
So I saw A.C. Cowlings on a show years ago, and he said how Nicole told him that OJ was going to kill her. And he said that he took her around her house and said, look at all these awards and look at all these pictures with all these wonderful people. He's such a philanthropist. He's not going to kill you. He's not going to hurt you. And I'm sure he deals with that guilt every day that he didn't believe her. But it's understandable. That's ignorance on domestic abuse, and that's why we have to change that. Exactly.
You know, and you know, AC is still part of our lives. You know, he's blood's thicker than water, you know, and we don't come from a family that hates. And well, Denise is on another level, but for the most part, we don't come from a level of hate. And the kids still look up to AC, and AC drives them down to Laguna, you know, whenever they're in town. So he's still part of our lives when the kids are in town.
Yeah.
But he, I hope there's a little sense of guilt, and I hope that other people have a little sense of guilt, like Kris Kardashian that we all know, or Kris Jenner. I hope people feel a little bit of guilt, not because I don't like these people, just because I hope it changed their perspective on if they witness this with somebody else, then hopefully they'll have the courage and the education to speak up about it.
Sure. Well, AC just speaking up on that show, I thought, I mean, how many years ago was that? And I remember it, and it was before I was involved with domestic abuse, and it made an impression on me. So, you know, definitely speaking up and admitting that we're all not perfect, and learning from experiences can help people.
You just need to learn from it.
Yeah. So now I have a question for you, because you mentioned Denise. I know you had mentioned to me that she's very involved in policy making and changing laws, and we have some laws here that we would like to change, and I thought I might tell you and get your spin on it and see what you thought.
Okay,
so one.
And she is. Denise is Denise is very instrumental in this world. She in the domestic violence sector. She brought the VINE, the Victims Notification Program, into ACT, the Violence Against Women Act.
Wait. I didn't know she put VINE into action. That's amazing.
Yeah, she was part of that. She was part of, I think she testified in Congress for VAWA and also the VINE. She was working really diligently with now Vice President Biden, but at that time Senator Biden, who's very instrumental in the world of domestic violence. Denise has done a lot. She brought the hearsay rule back into the courts. You know, Denise is very different than myself. I get things done, but in a different way. I'm a teacher, and so is she. But this girl changes laws. Like, she sees something, she goes for it, and she does what she can. She'll do what she can to change it.
You know, we need people that reach people's hearts, and we need people that reach the laws to help people. And
that's why I referred you to Denise.
Yeah. Now, VINE is to be able to let victims know when their abusers are out of jail, correct?
Right.
Okay.
When they're coming out. They haven't been released yet, but when they will be released.
Right. So interestingly enough, it came to my attention a couple months ago that, let's say a woman, just for the sake of saying a gender, a woman has a final restraining order on a man. And that man hired a lawyer. It takes usually at least a year. So she's had a final restraining order for a year, and they've contested the final restraining order. And maybe something happened in court where it was maybe something small that they were able to overturn, where there wasn't enough evidence for whatever reason. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen that the final restraining order gets overturned. Well, there is no victim notification for the victim. So that person that had the final restraining order on them could show up at the victim's door that day, the next day, and not be committing a crime, and they have no idea that the final has been overturned.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know what the laws are in all the other states, but that is how it is in Camden County. So I'm meeting with different political officials, and we're going to try to see if we can change that law.
And get Denise on your side, because she knows how to do it. Yeah, and she's a tiger. So I mean, I can't speak for her. She will do it, but knowing my sister, she gets things done.
Yeah. And then
she's not afraid, as we all know.
And then we have another law that we're trying to do where there is, in Camden County, there is a domestic violence registry, which I believe really just the police departments use. But we want to make it into kind of like a Megan's Law registry. So let's say you want to date somebody, you've met them on Match.com or something like that, and you want to date them, you can go online and you can see if they have a final restraining order against them.
Perfect.
So we're trying to work on that.
I always say when you start dating somebody, people do background checks and don't be afraid to do it. You know, I mean, even then it's like you really don't know what you're getting into anyways, but you know, if there is another resource like that, what a phenomenal idea.
I know.
That's a great idea.
About it. Yeah, and to do it for free, you know, and what if your kid is dating someone and you want to, I'm sorry?
The teens.
Yeah.
The teenagers.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, perfect for everybody, but.
Yeah. And so what upcoming events do you have, Tanya? What's going on?
You know what? It's
I know you said you were crazy yesterday.
It's really, there's so much going on, especially right now. You know, like I said, Daddy died last year. So really, and I was in graduate school taking care of my mom who had cancer. So it was just and writing a book. So my priority was really in taking care of my dad and finishing school, taking care of my family, doing speaking intermittently. But if I missed more than one day of class, I got kicked out of the program. So I really just wanted to figure that and just get that done. So since the beginning of the year, all of a sudden I have all this emotional, mental, spiritual, physical space because things have completed. Right. Daddy's passed, the school's done, mom's clean, everything's good. And now
congratulations to your mom.
Yeah, it's awesome. At 80, she battled stage 3C breast cancer at 80. And you know what got her through?
What?
Her head. Her head. She was so positive. And, these positive affirmations and positive thinking, I'm like, Mom, do you ever have a bad day? She's like, no, look at everything I have. And Hillary, that woman has so much to complain about. And she doesn't. So since the beginning of the year, all these projects have been coming up. So this is what I got. Just spoke at San Diego Women's Week, which is held through the North San Diego Business Chamber and in California. And they had, I think, is it a Reverend Tutu? His daughter spoke, or his sister. Wow. Deepak Chopra spoke last year. We, check it out. It's Women's Week in San Diego. I can go on. So I did that, and that was phenomenal.
Can we find this link on your website?
You know what? It will be going up. I'm kind of redoing my content right now, but people can Google North San Diego Chamber of Commerce or San Diego Women's Week.
Okay.
And it's an event. It's an event that they put on every year for the community. Men go too, but it's primarily for women to talk about financial wellness, mental wellness, business development, personal development. So it's really you've got a wide array of subjects. So I just did that. I spoke at an addictions conference a couple of weeks ago in Mississippi for Jackson, Mississippi. It was their 7th annual addictions conference.
You know, I have to tell you, I have to tell you about the addictions. It's so important because everything that you're involved in really meshes and intertwines together, because we might have people come to our organization, to JFCS, because they need help with finances, or they need our food pantry, or they have, excuse me, or they have an addiction, or they have a relative with an addiction.
Right.
And when you peel away the layers, oftentimes there's other reasons behind it. And unfortunately, a lot of the times abuse is behind it. But it's great to get to that layer and find out, where it started, and to be able to attack all the issues.
Exactly. We just see the surface, and I like how you say it's like peeling the onion away, and in the core, that's where the issues lie. And we need skilled counselors, we need skilled advocates and life coaches to get into the nitty gritty. So the stuff that they're going through, it doesn't mean that that chaos still doesn't happen,
right,
but they'll know how to go through it with much more ease. Exactly, coping skills, and that's something that we need to teach the kids in school. Like we don't teach kids life skills, coping skills in school, and I think it's really important that we consider that.
I do too, especially before that frontal lobe is fully formed. We need them to be able to learn those coping skills.
Exactly, but that's somebody else's project. If somebody wants me to help them with it, I'd be more than happy.
But you do coaching.
Yes. I do my coaching, and it's all about helping people navigate through chaos. So when I wrote my book, I didn't want it to be just a regular The Finding Peace book. I just didn't want it to be any book that somebody just reads and puts back up on the bookshelf.
Right.
I'm a student at heart. I love to learn. And I think once we stop learning, then we die. So I wanted it to be a resource for people. So I created Tanya's Tools for Change, and it's basically my own little 12-step program. So it talks about anything like time management for more energy, more life management, nurturing ourselves, because we're so hard on ourselves all the time.
Yes, we are.
And we need to give ourselves huge hugs.
Yes.
I created this, April Shelley Designs created this necklace for me, and I'm showing it up on my website, and it says huge hugs, because we are so hard on ourselves, and we need to start loving ourselves more.
I agree.
I talk about the importance of meditation and praising yourselves, and the most important is accepting and surrendering to the situation that you're in, because once we can accept, we break down that wall of resistance. And once we break down that wall of resistance, change can happen. So that's really what I walk people through. It's a 90-day program to finding peace, and we go through a tool every week. So if somebody is interested in learning that, let me know. I'm going to be doing telecalls and all kinds of changes happening.
That's great. And I have to tell you, I recently had to take some time off for my health, and one of my coworkers, who's a nurse, gave me the best advice. And she said, just listen to your body, give yourself a break. And my organization, my coworkers are so amazing. They really wanted me to put myself first. And it was very difficult, but I did. I had to really make a concerted effort. It's amazing how we just seem to always want to put ourselves last and push. But if we do make ourselves a priority, people applaud us if you have the right support system around you.
Absolutely. And what a beautiful organization to support you in doing that. Here in Southern Orange County, I think you'd be fired. Not you, but just anybody, because it's just a different world out here.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you are blessed to work with such beautiful people. I had an opportunity to meet so many. But I think what you just shared is so key, and I firmly believe that's why we are witnessing so much violence, so much chaos, so much depression, and even suicides and addiction in today's world, is because we use this stuff too much. We do. We use technology. I mean, we're doing it right now, but we're so consumed with it, and we don't allow ourselves, that was hard for me to say, we don't allow ourselves to be still,
right, to shut
and just
down.
Listen to our bodies. And we need to slow down, because, stress, firmly, I believe stress is the umbrella of all chaos. And if we don't really learn how to manage the stress, everything around us is going to turn upside down. So you are very, very fortunate. You're very fortunate that you had the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
You know, before we forget, because I do want to mention this. When I spoke there, there was this woman. She wrote a book about like the yolk, the egg, or something like that. The yolk. Okay, I forgot her name, and forgive me. Yes, and this is a beautiful story. So we know her story. She wrote about it. So can I share it?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
And she was a guest on our show. She was one of my first guests on my show.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
so
her name is Margot Viola.
Yes, Fiola. I love that name.
Yeah.
So she was arrested, as your listeners know, for basically defending herself from her abusive partner. She shared with me that night that she wrote a letter to our organization, the Nicole Brown Foundation. When we had it, we don't have it anymore. And my dad wrote her back. My dad wrote her a letter and responded, and I said, Margot, do you have that letter? And she's like, no, I wish. But you know what? It's what a bit of comfort that just by taking the time to acknowledge somebody during a really, really hard time. And I think in our busy world, we don't do that. And I think we need to bring in that old school value, because people are getting dismissed, and they're not being recognized, and they're not being acknowledged. And I think if we stop, be still, and really just start acknowledging people, maybe, just maybe, we'll see less chaos in our world. Who knows?
And you know, I was just at a class the other day, and they were telling the advocates, you don't have to have a magic pill for these people. You don't have to give them all the answers. But if you just touch a victim's arm and say, I'm sorry that this happened to you and you didn't deserve it, you might be the first person in years to validate them and to let them know that they don't deserve to be treated like that. Such a simple gesture could really turn someone's world around.
Absolutely. But I don't know, people are just so scared. It's like nobody wants to get involved. And it's like, you know what? I like that. Just letting somebody know you're here if they want to talk to you. And, if they come to you and share stories with you and their experience, just listen. Don't give advice. Don't tell them what to do. Don't tell them where to go. Tell them where they need to go and what they need to do to keep themselves safe if something happens. But for the most part, just be there.
Right.
You're not there to fix the marriage. You're not there to fix the relationship. Just be there for her or the children. And, we just don't do that enough. And that simple touching the arm of somebody and say, you don't deserve this. You deserve love and compassion could honestly shift something in that person. And you don't know when.
Yeah,
it may be at that moment.
And letting them know.
It may be in a week. Yeah.
Well, on that beautiful sentiment, sadly, it has flown by our time. So I can't wait to have you on the show again. I just want to reiterate, do you have a new book that's coming out that we'd like to mention?
I do. It's called The 7 Sneaky Characters of Abuse. And it's basically those, the isolator, the emotional robber that we were talking about earlier. And
is that out now?
It's not published yet.
Okay.
It's not published yet. But if somebody wants a copy of that, I will be putting it up on my website for pre-orders.
Oh, okay.
So if somebody's interested in it, later on down the line, send me an email and I'll put you on that pre-order list.
Oh, well, I'm going to be on that list.
Yay. It's an easy read. It's like, 90 pages, 95 pages. It's different. I put questions in the back. Carolyn and I wrote it, Carolyn Inman. So it's very introspective with an empty page, so where people can take notes.
Oh, that's
because
smart.
I believe that, I'm a big journaler. I love journaling. And I think that if we don't ask ourselves questions, then how do we know what we want to work on ourselves?
Right.
So we help bring that stuff out for the reader. So that hopefully it'll be out maybe in 3 months. I don't even know yet. But if people want to go ahead and pre-order, just give me your email send me an email at Tanya, Tanya, at TanyaBrown.net, N-E-T, and I'll send it over to Carolyn, and we'll start doing the administration, and we'll keep you posted on it.
And we'll post all your information over here and through JFCS, and we'll spread the word because it's just amazing work that you do. So I can't wait to talk to you again.
It's amazing what you do. Say hello to everybody and keep the faith, because you people are so sweet. Not you people, but your agency.
I know what you meant.
Your agency is so kind and warm-hearted, and your hospitality was just beautiful. So I am really, really grateful for all the work that you do.
Thank you. All right. Well, you
You're
have
welcome.
a great afternoon because it's only 2:30 by you. I'm about to go to dinner here.
Go. Enjoy.
All right.
And say hi
Thank
to
you
your
so
family.
much. I will. Thank you for watching. And remember, love shouldn't hurt.